Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I like to start all of our general meetings with a land acknowledgement. And I am particularly kind of tired today, so I'm going to read it today. So forgive me if I'm staring in the opposite direction. I'm going to read from my other monitor. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for getting on. My name is Shimona. I use she, her pronouns. I work for 350 Seattle as the Art and Movement Building Director. I am calling in from the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people and of the Duwamish tribe. We begin our meetings and gatherings with an acknowledgement of whose land we're on. We do this to honor the original people who were here before us and who are still here fighting for their rights, for our animal sisters and brothers, and for the land. Now more than ever, in this whirlwind of crises, we should look to Indigenous wisdom to reimagine and create a livable future for us and those who come after us. I also specifically name the Duwamish tribe because to this day, they are still fighting to be federally recognized. And to learn more on how to support the Duwamish tribe, please, I'm going to post a link in the chat of where you can learn a little bit more about the fight that the Duwamish tribe are fighting and how you can support them in a monetary way, but then also just like writing letters and emails to our senators and legislators. I also want to invite people to share in the chat where they are calling from. I think it's important for all of us to recognize that whose land that we're on. And it's also, I'm going to post another link here of where, if you don't know whose land you're on, you can look it up here. If it'll let me, yeah, on nativeland.ca. And not only can you look up whose land you are on, you can also see the traditional territories that were made, and even some of the smaller tribes that you'd probably never even heard of. There's even some just within the neighborhood where I live that I hadn't heard of, and I'm still learning how to pronounce their name, and I'm not going to butcher it tonight, but I do in my heart paying their respects. I also want to acknowledge people in this acknowledgement, the frontline workers, our healthcare workers, the unhoused, and the folks that are incarcerated. Also want to make sure that we hold them in our thoughts and our acknowledgements and in our actions each time we come together. So with that, I just want to take another deep breath and just feel super grateful that I am here and I have a roof over my head and I have food and I have clean water and I have all of you here willing to learn and be in community together. And to support that community, I have a few logistics that I want to go through. Just want to let everyone know that this meeting is being recorded. So if you do not wish to have your face shown on the video, please make sure to turn it off. And if you need to rename yourself, feel free to rename yourself. Just hover over your name in the participants. If you click on the participants and you click more, you should be able to rename yourself. I also would like to make sure that when speakers are speaking, please stay on mute. But if you do have a question, idea, or affirmations, feel free to throw them in the chat and say hello, that was awesome. And you may see some people throwing up plus signs being like, yes, I totally agree with that. I love to see it and it's great. Shows that people are listening. And lastly, I just want to let everyone know that we'll be following up with some resources afterwards, probably after we get kind of the edit the recording so people can watch it again, and we'll post it on YouTube for people to see. And we'll have some resources from the presentation for you to look just in case if you miss anything. Oh, and not lastly, there is closed captioning available. If you look at the bottom, you will see the little CC icon. If you click on that, you'll be able to see show subtitle. And you should be able to, there'll be a little pop-up screen that'll be, it's a computer service that we use that'll show the captions for you. And that's what that little live button says in the corner, if some of you can see it. Don't worry, it's a computer watching us, not, you know, Big Brother. But who knows? You never know these days. That's just one of the things, the give and the takes that we have to have some of these days. One day we'll figure it out. So yeah, so that's some of our logistics. I also just kind of want to recognize that just like today got crazy. Or excuse me, today got really wild and scary, and I just like am wondering where everybody else is at. So please pop into the chat and just say like how you're feeling, just like how are you kind of like processing. Maybe you didn't even notice anything was happening. You're just like have a question, just like what happened. I'd be surprised if that was how you were feeling, but also jealous. So I'd love to see what people have to say, and just like maybe we just kind of throw out everything that we're feeling into the chat. We'll sit with it for like half a minute, and then we'll kind of just take 3 breaths and just let it go for the rest of this evening. So we can be here with each other and learn from the aviation team who's come up with this really lovely presentation to share with us. Yes, ragey, I definitely felt that. Ups and downs, feeling unnerved, alarmed, yes, annoyed, yes. I'll share that I definitely had some bouts of laughter where I'm just like, this, you know, you're just like, oh my God, is this really happening? It's really happening. Okay. And the only response is just to laugh a little bit. And then you're kind of like, oh God, I feel like crying now. But I think it's good, the release, you know? Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, definitely, Glenda. Focusing on the wins in Georgia. I love lifting that up because unfortunately, I think some people have forgotten that happened, and we shouldn't forget that was amazing that we did that. Oh my gosh. And I know a lot of people here did a lot of get out the vote work, even from Seattle all the way to Georgia. And it's so great. Yes. All right. So I kind of want to just like all of us take those feelings, we'll process them, and then let's take maybe about 3 breaths together. Feel free to like plant your feet and take 1 breath in and release it. Take another breath in and release it. Take another breath in and release it. And now I am ready to hear about what's been going on in our community. But to further ground us in our space, I would like to invite Ale from the People's Echo to share a song with us. And I am going to pull up the music right now.
Thanks, Shimona. Hi, everybody. My name is Ale Blakely. I use she, her, they, them pronouns. And I can't say I'm happy right now, but I'm glad that we're all sharing this space together and that we're going to be able to share a song. I'm part of the People's Echo, which is a choir that we started via 350 Seattle with people who like to sing and believe in the power of song. All social movements have had songs throughout history, and I can't say I can name one that hasn't been a successful social movement without song. So I was gonna share a song that the People's Echo have brought in, but when Shimona started talking and I started reading what people were writing, I shifted really quickly. So We're actually going to sing a song tonight called Loosen, Loosen. And I'm going to just teach the first part. There are 2 parts, but I'm only going to teach the first part. And if people want to sing the second part, you'll hear it and catch on as we play the song. I'll put the lyrics in the chat box. Is there anybody who would want to respond to me as I call out the lines just for this teaching moment? Any brave person that wants to respond? Anybody, 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 anybody? Okay. Hannah, if my mic is working, I would. Oh, your mic's not working. Well, I will call in response with myself. So this song says, loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry. You sing, loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry. And then I sing, the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. You, the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. So it's just going to do that the whole song. You'll catch on as it goes, but I invite people to get into their bodies, get out of their heads, drop into your heart and your belly and the lower part of your body, and let your body feel the gravity holding you and the land holding you. So, Shimona, when you're ready.
Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, and you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. The weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. The weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go. The weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go.
Thank you, Shimona. Thanks everybody for singing with us. That was beautiful. I'm going to put my email in the chat box. If anyone's interested, we get together once a month right now online and we sing together and we teach a bunch of different songs, and it's really soothing for our nervous systems, and it really creates a sense of community and joy, and also processes grief and rage and all the other things we're feeling. So I'll just put my email there right now, and yeah, it was nice to meet y'all and see new faces. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ale. It's always so great to have music to kind of like ground us in spaces and bring us closer together. So I definitely needed that today. I think I want to transition us into kind of like an opportunity for us to get to know each other. And Brandon, if you would like to kind of introduce this next part, go ahead.
Yeah, so we wanted to start with some small group introductions. Hi, my name's Brandon, by the way. I use he, him pronouns. And we're gonna really quickly do breakout groups with 3 people so that you can meet new friends sitting next to you as if we were all in person together at one of our general meetings, a potluck and eating together. So we'd like you to introduce your name and your pronouns, and also say what brings you to climate action and to 350 in 2021. So I just put those questions in the chat. And if you take 1 minute each and do quick introductions, make some new faces and friends here in the movement in 2021 in breakout rooms, then we'll be back here together after about 3 minutes.
You'll see a little window pop up and go ahead and hit accept and you'll join. Hey, Jim, everyone's in breakouts for the next few minutes. So
sorry, sorry. Hi, I just came on. Are we in a breakout room?
Yeah, they'll be back in a couple minutes.
Uh-oh. I can't hear you.
Oh,
can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on just a second. I'm sorry, Shimona, give me just another second here. Okay, let's go back there. Okay. Okay, now can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Are we in a breakout room?
Yeah, but they'll be back in like a minute.
Okay. Yeah, I just jumped on, obviously. So what are we talking about in this breakout session?
It was just a small introductions, kind of like just like your name and pronouns and what brings you to the climate, to 350 Seattle and to climate action in 2021.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not super, you're not missing anything too much.
Yeah. But to be honest with you, I was still listening to the Senate and House debates on the attempt to block the the electoral college votes.
Right.
Yeah. Have you been watching that today at all? I mean, the horrendous crap that happened.
Yeah, I've been watching too much of it. We kind of briefly talked about it earlier, and so yeah, just everyone's. But we're kind of going to ground into the space and just focus on aviation for the next hour.
Yeah, and they were just finishing up the vote in the Senate. And
Oh, really?
So
Good.
yeah, on Arizona, but they may not do another state. At least the Senate may not play on the others, and they have to play on all of them, right?
Right.
There has to be a Senator and a House. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, everyone's going to be coming back, so.
Okay. All right.
Here we go. Hello, welcome back. We're waiting for all the other people to come back in. I love all the people who hold on to the very last second. They're not done talking yet. Oh, I still got 6 seconds. Here they all come. Welcome back, friends. I hope you got to meet someone new. Learned a little bit about why people are here tonight and learning more about 350 Seattle. Really appreciate it. And I think with that, we're going to get into the meat of the evening. And I also just want to introduce the people who are going to be speaking tonight. Obviously, you heard from Brandon. He's part of the aviation team, as well as Jeff West, who is here with support from Ann, John, and Laura. We're also going to hear a little bit from our Maritime Solutions team from Stacy, and then also a little update from David Perk with the Civic Action Team. So I will pass it on to Brandon, and I think people are going to be sharing a screen there. And also just a reminder, put yourselves back on mute, and here we go.
Awesome. Thank you, Shimona. Thanks to everyone for having us. Hopefully you can see my screen about aviation, but please mention in the chat if there's ever an issue with audio, technical issues, let us know. We also have a number of the aviation team members watching the chat to gather up some questions. We'll kind of chunk tonight in a few sections and stop for Q&A between sections. So with that, I am going to dive into our main topic of the night, aviation, which is the world's fastest growing source of climate pollution. And we are going to start with a quick poll just to gauge where everybody's coming from. Shimona, if you want to put up our quick 2-question poll, we'll come back to these in a second. We'll give people 30 seconds to answer these fast questions.
Apologies, Brandon. It looks like I loaded them up separately, so we'll do the first one first and then.
Great.
Maybe just a couple more seconds. I think we almost got everybody. Here we go, last 3. Come on, you can do it. I think we'll call it there. And I'm going to end the polling. Can't hear you, Brandon.
Thanks, yeah. So yeah, in that first question, I think we individually feel it, but also the whole aviation industry has had a lot of change since this pandemic. And we'll talk a little more about that later tonight. Second question, Shimona. This question asks, how close are you to the nearest airport or runway? And we'll talk a little bit tonight too about what that means.
A few more. There we go. Think
Great.
well, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. As the last few votes roll in, I'll say I want to acknowledge, personally, we all may have some grief about many things, but also our holidays being disrupted or not getting to travel and be with loved ones. And in this moment, also for the whole aviation industry, before travel bounces back to pre-COVID levels, it's a moment to rethink the growth of flying and its impact on climate and its impact on the neighborhoods and communities that are nearest to airports. So we'll talk about this question and our results in a few minutes as well. So tonight we're gonna jump into a few key facts to know about aviation and climate change. And we'll come back and show our poll results in a minute. So there's 5 key facts. And as I go through these 5, if you have questions, please use the chat. We'll try to gather up all the questions and talk about the science and the facts on aviation and climate change. And the first important thing to know, aviation is the fastest growing source of climate pollution, both globally and locally. And a few key stats, globally, air travel has increased in the last 3 decades a huge amount, 300%, and it's on pace to triple again in the coming 3 decades. And locally, turning to the Seattle and King County area, aviation accounts for 42% of the city of Seattle's greenhouse emissions as of its last inventory in 2018. And worse than that, Seattle aviation emissions increased over 40% in the last decade measured from 2008 to 2018. So just to put this in perspective, when you zoom out to all our transportation emissions in the city of Seattle, this right-hand side, gasoline, the cars and trucks, that over a decade decreased 3%. And so maybe we feel a little relieved, like, whew, that 3% isn't enough decrease, but it's some decrease headed in the right direction. But the problem is that this jet fuel aviation emission side of our greenhouse gas emissions went up 40% in that same period. So the problem here is that all our other improvements at climate pollution are going to be totally swamped by the fast pace of expanded aviation emissions. And that there's no good emoji for that. It's a serious issue. And the bottom line is that this is the fastest growing source of pollution locally and globally. And we need to pay attention. So I'm glad you're all here. Secondly, I want to say a bit about personal carbon footprints, but not because we focus on individual behavior or flight shaming. Instead, our mission is to come together and make systems change and to influence policy, like halting airport expansion or subsidies to this industry, or having our local leaders address the environmental justice issues. But at a personal level, it is important to point out some of the facts here about the impact of aviation on climate. So a couple key facts. The good news is that if you were one of those people in the survey, and maybe Shimona, you could share our results in question 1. If you're one of those people who flew less since the pandemic, because our flying is the biggest part of our personal carbon footprints, If you flew less, like the 60% of people who took no trips at all since the pandemic, or the other 11% of people who took fewer trips because of this, or it looks like we have 23% of people who have had no air travel regardless of the pandemic. So a large group of people in this room had a significant decrease in their air travel. And the good news is that's the biggest reduction of your carbon footprint, and you've already made it in 2020 and since the pandemic. So again, we don't focus on personal action, but policy and collective action. And so a couple other important pieces of the puzzle, and I'll stop sharing that poll result. Aviation is a much more carbon intense way to travel than other modes. So just by comparison, this little graph shows to go a mile in a plane versus a train, or even a public bus or a car, aviation's a really carbon intensive way to travel. So it's an important policy decision of, do we want our governments investing in this or subsidizing it? Lastly, the people who fly and have a carbon footprint from their flying, it's not evenly distributed. 1% of the world's population, the 1% of all humans who fly the most, are responsible for 50% of the CO2 emissions from aviation. So the people causing huge amounts of travel by this high impact mode, it's not evenly spread among all humans. And that gets us to the environmental justice aspect of this, which is fact number 3, because there's a real impact on the people who live near airports. And aviation pollution is highest, closest to airports, within 1 kilometer or within 3 miles. Every ring closer to the airport has a higher amount of ultrafine particulate and other kinds of pollution that are exhaust from like takeoffs and jet engines. And in King County, those residents are more likely to be people of color. In fact, in King County, on average, the county is 35% people of color. But if you look within 1 kilometer of a flight path, that number jumps from 35 up to 55% of that population is people of color. And we know from many studies that aviation pollution is linked to all kinds of scary health conditions. In addition, COVID and like lung issues now. And excuse me while I find my mouse here. The airports in King County are also not like evenly distributed. They are in South King County, nearest to higher percentages of people of color, of lower household income populations, or people who score lower on a health and economic index. This is from King County's data and maps. So the airports, we said that the people flying and the most frequent 1% of flyers causing 50% of this pollution, that's not evenly distributed among all of us. And those frequent flyers are probably not the same people who live right next to the airport and live at those fence line communities and are the most impacted by the pollution released at our airports, which are in South King County. So there are some environmental justice issues that are a key part of aviation and its impacts on climate and on the health of surrounding communities. Number 4, aviation emissions have more warming effect than just normal on the ground emissions of a jet engine. So this is part of what makes aviation really tricky. There are many effects up in the air when a plane tailpipe is releasing emissions that are called non-CO2 effects, sometimes called climate forcing or radiative forcing. And the standard that's widely accepted is that 3 times is the right multiplier for the 3 times the warming impact that those airplane emissions cause compared to just on the ground emissions. So the fact that it's rapidly increasing, but also has a multiplied warming effect, makes aviation emissions really an important source that we cannot ignore. And lastly, aviation doesn't have a carbon neutral alternative. Like with cars, we have electric cars, which there's ways to sort of switch off of fossil fuels or gas. But in aviation, you might have heard about carbon offsets or using biofuels or electric planes. And I'm here to say I wish some of those things might exist, but they're not as technologies ready or they don't work. And to briefly summarize, offsets are problematic because we can't get to a carbon-free economy by continuing to pollute and then pay someone else to clean it up. And also a study from the European Commission found in carbon offset schemes today that only 2% of the offsets you pay for have a high probability of reducing emissions on the other end. Biofuels are problematic because they still emit CO2, still cause global warming, and still have that radiative forcing, that 3 times factor on our environment. And electric planes would be cool, but they're not ready for most commercial aviation. And it takes decades, roughly 30 years on average, to replace an airplane fleet. So to have a fleet that's electric by 2050, those planes would really need to be available and starting to be purchased now, but they're not here. So in addition, there's a noise issue that even with electric plane engines, noise is one of the key impacts. And a national study that included 5 Beacon Hill schools in Seattle found that noise from the airport is statistically correlated with lower test scores at schools in Beacon Hill. So for a lot of reasons, aviation just doesn't have a solution in today's technology that can make it zero carbon. So I hope there's been lots of good questions and things rolling in the chat. I just want to summarize that from all these facts, we'll stop and do some Q&A here. Our 350 Seattle aviation team and a global group called the Stay Grounded Network, we're advocating that we stop expanding airports, that we reduce aviation to meet our greenhouse goals and our climate goals, and to support the impacted communities and to seek environmental justice, and that we have to rethink how we move people and move goods.
I'm going to interject here just a second as the timekeeper. We probably, if we're going to keep on time, don't really have any time for more question and answers other than what we've already dealt with in the chat.
Thanks, John. Then we'll go ahead, keep putting questions in the chat. We'll gather them up, and we're answering some here live in the chat, and others that we don't get to, we'll be able to send out a follow-up. Thanks, John. So here is a one-page infographic we just put together that shows a simple, kind of takeaway handout, some of these facts about aviation that we'll also send out as a follow-up. But the bottom line there, as you see it on the right, is we have to reduce aviation to meet our climate goals. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Jeff from the aviation team, who has a quick slideshow of some really inspiring actions, because it's not just here in Seattle or Washington State where we're realizing these impacts of aviation and the dangerous expansion are severe for our climate and our communities, but there's some cool stuff happening around the globe. So Jeff, take it away.
Sure, thank you, Brandon. Yeah, so next slide, please, if you would. Yeah, so this is just a quick map showing that these are places, airports around the globe where there are conflicts that are noted, either investigated or they're under investigation. So, I mean, air travel is obviously a global activity, and there is a lot of global concern, and we are a small part of that. You can see there's some small dots up there in the northwest part of North America. That's us and our neighbors. Next slide, please. And so there's people doing things all over the world about reducing air travel and the pollution it causes. This is a group in Bristol, UK. You may look at closely and see that they're all Super Mario characters. It looks like they all have mustaches. Don't know what the power of that is exactly, but clearly they're organized and getting some attention to a vital issue. Next slide, please. This is another attention-getting activity, also in London. This one, just people, putting their bodies on the floor, on the line, as it were, to get people's attention about the damage that expanded air travel can have on the globe. The next slide, please. Breaking news. This is on December of of 2020, the UK's independent statutory body charged with advising the government on climate policy issued a report stating that airport extensions must stop if the UK wants to reach its goal of being carbon neutral by 2050. And I think that would also hold true for us here in King County. Next slide. So again, another a demonstration here. This one is in Vienna, Austria. People with nice pink all body suits, and this one in Barcelona, Spain. There's something about all colored body suits that's quite powerful. But you can see people are taking action and getting the word out, and I think this is a part of what we want to do as well. Next slide. You know, pointing out that just back to normal, as it were, back to normal after the pandemic is still a crisis. Air traffic is increasing, even though there's been a dip with COVID. It's been increasing over the decades. There are expectations by the industry and others and government entities that it'll continue to increase, and we need to fight back against that. Next slide. This is just another, these are people putting themselves right in front of airplanes to stop as a way of demonstrating against the expansion of air travel. And you know, they're making the point about some demands about if we're going to be helping people, but you can next slide, please. That's great. If you're going to make demands about helping the workers, not the owners of the airlines, if you have a decrease in airline use, you have to have a just transition away from airline use, fair taxes on jet fuel, and landing subsidies. So all of this is goes to the justice issues as well as you try to transition away from this highly polluting type of travel. And with that, I think I'm going to hand it back to Brandon for the rest of the presentation there.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. So tonight we have a quick group action, and we are asking you all for some help to amplify our voices in this movement. The Port of Seattle has a plan to expand SeaTac Airport. And in these times of COVID, they and everyone are reconsidering the future of travel. And in 2021, the expansion plan, the master plan to expand SeaTac, has its environmental reviews and approvals. And it's a critical moment to elevate the voices of impacted neighbors and speak up for the climate. So we're asking for your help tonight to do a small group email action here to ask our elected port commissioners to halt SeaTac airport expansion until there's a carbon neutral way to fly. So we have a quick action that will take about 5 minutes. I'm going to show you quickly how to do it. There's a template. If someone can put this URL into the chat, that would be great. I'll screen share and show. There's a quick email template that lets you email our 5 elected port commissioners. These are elected from King County at large, these 5 folks, to govern the port, which oversees SeaTac and the airport expansion master plan. And we have an email message. We invite all of you to join us in sending to them tonight to start 2021 with a bit of a New Year's resolution about taking aviation climate emissions seriously and halting the expansion of the airport until there's a carbon neutral way to fly. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and give us a few minutes to take this collective action. And let's see, in the chat, did someone put that link? Great, I see it there. Yes. So what you can do is you can open that link up, and I'll show quickly my email process. You can, from this message, you can easily kind of copy all the email addresses of our 5 port commissioners and paste them into a message in your email. So here's me on the left, just grabbing their names and pasting them in. And I really encourage people to change the default message and make this your own. The elected port commissioners really pay more attention when your individual message is telling the story of why you care, much more than just this generic message with some facts that we put together. So I invite everybody to take a few minutes, send this quick email together. When you do, to let us know in the chat that you sent it, and we're going to see how many of us take action together tonight. And also use this time then while I play some background music So take a restroom break, fill your drink if you need it. And in about 4 minutes, we'll come back together for the rest of the aviation presentation, a presentation on maritime solutions, and a presentation on the civic action team. If you have tech questions during this email action, just ask them in the chat or come off mute and speak up, and we'll hang out here for our 4-minute musical break while people send this email blast, and we'll be ready to help anybody who has questions. Okay, it's 53 after. I'm gonna wind up this, it's the Delvon Lamar Organ Trio, a song called Move On Up that they recorded at KEXP. And anyway, I hope that everybody got a good break, refilled their drinks, sent the email. Feel free to use that link to, if you didn't finish a message, to be able to write it later or share it with friends. Share what you wrote and why this matters to you. Thanks for taking some group action there and raising awareness about a super important issue. So I'm going to very quickly say a few last things about the aviation work, and then we have our couple other topics to touch on tonight. Let's see if I can get the right window. Sorry. Back on the screen. Okay, so one sec.
I just want to pop in and say that I realize we're getting close to the top of the hour, but I would encourage everyone to stick around to hear the updates from the other two presenters. So maybe if you can hang on for another 10 minutes after 8, that we would really appreciate it.
Thanks, Shimona. Definitely, yeah, we'll try to quickly wrap up aviation and get to our other topics tonight. Okay, there we go. Tell me if you can see my screen again.
Yes, but it's all. I don't.
Great. We will. Okay, we'll wrap up aviation here with a bit of our plan for 2021. And Shimona, can you see that slide?
No, it's just all black.
Ah, okay.
I can share the slides if you want.
That would, you know, I think I got it this time.
Yay, it works.
Yay. So this year, our #1 priority is running a strong campaign against the massive expansion of our SeaTac airport at the port. The port's master plan, called the SAMP, has an environmental impact statement and an FAA review this year, and there's tons of acronyms. So if you love acronyms and climate action, our team is the one to join. The King County International Airport is also looking at a master plan that includes some expansion. And in all of this, I will say the biggest tools we have are public comment, going to meetings, testifying, and working with the neighborhoods impacted. Groups like El Centro de la Raza in Beacon Hill, groups in Georgetown, and also you all amplifying that it's not just the people who live, you know, right next to airports, but our whole community that needs to pay attention to the climate and the health impacts. Also, this year, greenhouse gas inventories at the county are something we're working on. The county has a strategic climate action plan, and we're trying to make sure aviation is accurately and factually captured in our county's plans. We're part of the Global Stay Grounded Network, and there's also some other regional and statewide aviation involvement we've got going. So I'll just say, making inroads into this really entrenched industry, it's a big project, but it's exciting. I know that, you know, regional and state policymakers feel like aviation is an economic engine for tourism, and that unlimited growth of this sector is, you know, is our future. But we can't keep feeding this growth. We have to step back, look at the facts, and look at the environmental justice issues and the climate issues. So it's a big project, but thanks for letting us have time tonight, Shimona and team, to share all this. And thank you all for paying attention to this topic and helping spread the word to our port commissioners that you care. So huge thank you as well to Jeff, Anne, John, everybody, Laura, others from the aviation team who helped answer questions in the chat and support all this content tonight. So we have next up some quick updates from other teams. Maritime Solutions team is the first of these, and Stacy Oakes is here to tell us more about it. Stacy?
Hi. Hey everybody, I'm Stacy Oakes. I use she, her pronouns, and I am, I helped co-lead our newly formed Maritime Solutions team. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And we will be having our first meeting coming up soon, and I dropped the registration link right into the chat there. So if folks are interested, we have our first meeting on Tuesday, January 12th, which is next Tuesday at 6 p.m. I apologize, the bit.ly link is actually not working, so please use the link that I dropped in the chat. But just basically some of the things that is important about why we need to pay attention to maritime and better solutions are similar to what aviation folks already pointed out today, which is partially like the type of expansion that is very incongruous with our climate goals and having a livable future. And along with those kind of things, there's also just a few concerns, which would be like with maritime, it's also a highly unregulated industry. Globally, the maritime industry emissions have also been rapidly increasing. Not as much perhaps as the 300% with aviation, but still growing about 18% in the last 10 years. And then again, just like with aviation, you're going to have health impacts to the communities along coastlines. You're going to have health impacts to workers. And then we know that our waters are just already in trouble from both the water quality itself, as well as, you know, all of the marine life that live in the Salish Sea is already struggling as well. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And so just to give a quick example, and this is partly a direct correlation on this one with flights, is that cruise ships in themselves really attribute to flights. So for example, from Seattle to Alaska is the route that our cruise ships take. And about 85% of those cruise passengers take flights through SeaTac. So more cruise ships just equal, at least for Seattle, a lot more flights as well. You're talking in 2018 or 2019, I believe the number was about 600,000 passengers came through due to that 6-month cruise season. And that amount that it equals for both the cruise ships plus the flights that go with them is about 1/3 of the entire city of Seattle's emissions. So that gives you an idea that 6 months can equal 1/3 of the whole year's budget. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And also the other kind of big piece of as far as maritime you're going to be seeing is the cargo terminals. And with the cargo terminals, there's really a partnership between the Port of Tacoma and the Port of Seattle called the Northwest Seaport Alliance that work in tandem. And you're going to see things kind of going back and forth in that corridor. You'll recognize this map from earlier, the aviation shown, and you're going to see those same patterns of where the pollution lies. And you're looking at about 23% of the diesel exhaust in the Puget Sound region coming from the maritime sector, from the shipping vessels, the drayage trucks, cargo handling equipment, tugboats, and of course, passenger vehicles. So just some really large impacts as far as greenhouse gases and health is concerned. And just to kind of give an example, most cargo ships carry about 1 to 2 million gallons of fuel. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. And so basically, you know, it's again, a topic really worth digging into a bit more, and want to kind of be really respectful of everybody's time. So that's just a teaser. So come join us on Tuesday to learn more. And if you can't join us on Tuesday, but you are interested, feel free to just send me an email. My email's up on that slide as well. It's just stacy@350seattle.org. But we're looking for people who like to do different types of research, people that want to help us out with our social media content around maritime, people that are willing to do community outreach as we dig into more campaigns and engaging with the local area around maritime concerns. And also, just like with aviation, during the same public meetings you'd be potentially commenting at there, we're urging people to do public comment, and there's twice monthly times where you can actually do it easily by phone right now. And so kind of a variety of ways to plug in. Please join us or send an email if you're interested a little bit. And thanks so much for giving us a couple minutes to try and pique your interest around our newly formed Maritime Solutions team. And while we're on for the next few minutes, feel free to drop any questions in the chat. There's a few of us kind of from the group that's on tonight. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Stacy and the New Maritime Solutions team. So next, we have a quick update from the Civic Action Team. These are the faces of just a few people who've been organizing for months to kick off action around our next legislative session. So David Perk, please take it away.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm going to just use this slide. Yes, we've been having a lot of fun. We've been trying to come up with a slightly improved system. This is an activity that is done through not 350 Washington, 350, not 350 Seattle. It's done through 350 Washington. Here's the website where you can sign up to get our alerts. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but this activity is all focused on our state legislature. So not Congress. We saw some Congress on TV today, but our state legislature. And that session starts on Monday. So we're sort of in outreach mode, getting signups. The page that I dropped the link to explains what we do, but in a nutshell, if you're interested, sign up. You'll get 2 emails on Wednesdays and on Mondays that give you some things that you can do to move climate bills in the state legislature. The session starts next Monday and runs until the end of April. You can unsubscribe at any time, but we try to keep you busy. So that's all I'm here to say. I mostly came for the presentation, which I really enjoyed, but did want to give everybody a chance to get on board with the Civic Action Team if they're interested. And if you'd like to know what kinds of bills we're supporting on that same website, 350wa.org, we also have our legislative priorities, so you can kind of get a feeling for what kinds of stuff we're going to be telling you about. That's all.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Thanks for all the work, and have an exciting legislative session. So with that, we have come to the end of our presentation. I know a few of us will hang out for at least 5 more minutes if Shimona will keep the room open so people could ask more questions, connect with David or any of us from aviation, or Stacy from maritime. And Shimona, thank you for gathering us all. Thank you to Ale and the People's Echo for some music, and to everybody for getting together and starting off the new year with some collective action as a community here around climate.
Yes, yes. Thank you.